roads. They have, they just put them in place for you. They've been in place for many years. Secondly, I want to make a comment, to this lady here. I'm gonna give a little history. I see Jim Houston sitting over there. Back in, this was probably 15 to 18 years ago, Mr. Frank Houston, which was a real fine man that was a long-time mayor here. Him and his brothers who own this property adjoining three of these sides right here. I was in a meeting with them and we were talking about cutting the timber and we were talking about putting sewer in, and they were planning on, that was gonna be they were gonna develop these 3 pieces of property, and that was gonna be the retail area and the industrial part for the town of Casada. That was 15 years ago. I know for a fact Mr. Frank did everything in his power, and Mr. John Houston and Mr. Rob Houston did everything in their power to get sewage into this area right here. And not only could they not do it, the government wouldn't give it to them because it was mostly wetlands. And they said that, I don't forgot the amount of money it was gonna cost to have to just put sewage in these 3 pieces of property. So I mean, we can play the what if game all we want, Mayor. But, and we can get all the problems we want, but this sewage for this area has been fought for, I know, over 15 to 20 years now. And Jim may be able to give me a more, because I lose track of time, I'm getting old. But, Jim may be able to give me a longer history.
Do you know?
It's been a long time. I mean, Mr. Rob, I don't know what year Mr. Rob died, but it was probably 10 years before Mr. Rob died.
We've been here
It's been 20
50
years
years
or
and
more.
we've been trying to get sewage the whole time.
From the records I've seen.
But, when we get back to private property rights, that's why a town like Casada does do zoning. Because you can't, you can do what you want on your own sometimes, but you can't infringe on your neighbors.
That's right.
And to me, a 5,000 seat stadium with all the lights and the noises and everything go with it, and maybe it ain't but 2 nights a week, and maybe it ain't, but if it's gonna be a school with dormitories and all that, it's gonna be daily, 7 days a week. And I just feel like since I joined, that's just an infringement on my private property right for what I bought it for. And I just wanted to say that about private property because I was tired of hearing it.
Yes, sir. Councilman.
I noticed on a pamphlet or a document that you passed out at a council meeting here some time back, and it showed like, you had about, $2.3 million, had been raised or something for this facility.
We haven't released any number. You'd have to show me
Anyway, it indicated that you had that much asset to start this thing. Where are them investors at? Are they located in New York, or are they located locally? If this is gonna be a local thing, local people, I'm sure would wanna be invested in it.
We have corporate sponsors from within the state and from outside the state. We have private investors from in the state.
Are they in the county?
We do have some in the county, yes, sir.
So if you're buying land and you're not making any money off it, why can't you just go buy it somewhere else? I'm sure there's plenty of bigger towns that would love your economic development and whatever you're gonna do for the society.
And already have the infrastructure in place where you wouldn't have to do this.
Cause obviously most people here don't want it, so you're not helping us, you're not making a nickel, so, I mean, there's plenty of land for sale. Go buy it somewhere else, right? I mean, I don't understand like why you have to do it in Casada.
But it's not really a matter of why.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's a matter of, can we go through the proper procedural steps to follow the law? Because I don't want to make anyone unhappy, but to think that I can make everyone happy is an unfeasible.
Making an entire town pissed off.
Well, it's not an entire town.
Good job.
There's been many that have contacted us in favor. One being at the council meeting the other night.
They probably don't live like right next door.
Yeah, but they live on this side.
It doesn't matter what, they're in the town.
Well, then why aren't they here to support you?
We wouldn't, the whole thing is, the negative crowd is always going to be louder than the supportive crowd. And I'll use the current administration in DC as the perfect example. The supporters aren't very loud of the administration, but the other people are very loud on the other side.
I would say that in current administration, his supporters are quite loud.
There's a reason that it's been paraphrased as the silent majority.
You're just trying to like move, I would assume that if there was that much support here in the town of Casada that really, really wanted this, they would be here tonight
Exactly.
to show you support so that
We
you,
didn't
they
ask for
had
it.
your back, okay, because I'm sure you don't need it.
You're very condescending, and I'm not.
No, I'm just
condescending to
saying,
you
you're
guys,
just
so-
saying that there's a lot, but we're looking, I'm
But you
looking
do it in a
around trying to
respectful
find it.
manner.
I am doing it in a very respectful manner.
So your passive aggressive nature is
Right.
any better, right? Is that what you're saying? Because you are very passive aggressive.
Let's stay on the question.
But I did ask a question. Why Kusada? You still haven't said like why do you want to build it here?
Yeah, we've
Why
all
can't
asked
you-
that question
why can't
several
you
times
build
and
it
you're not
somewhere else?
answering.
Like if you're not making any money and you're buying the land and then donating it to the school, there's land all over the place.
It's the accessibility and the availability of the land.
It's not
that
accessible. You gotta build roads and put
I can't, I'm
stuff
trying to give you an answer, and you won't take my
in.
answer.
Go ahead, explain. Go ahead.
It's the accessibility and availability to the land that I personally chose.
So it's easier to buy this land.
That's right.
Okay, then just say that to start with. This, you should have opened up with, this land is really easy for me to buy with. I don't really have an
It's
economic.
family land, so.
He's not buying it, they're just giving it to
Oh,
him.
there is given.
Yeah,
family land.
and he's not making a nickel off of it.
Do you have a question?
Yes, sir. My question is, what can, you talk about there's gonna be like a $500 million economic impact here?
I just use that as an example.
As
Yes.
an example off of your model.
Mhm.
What kind of large businesses would you foresee trying to move into Casada with all the problems there
You
is?
got no sewage, you can't.
As I said
My
earlier,
family moved here in 1923.
As
We've
I
been
said-
here ever since.
I can't predict the development. I can only show the only closer proven model of what it was able to do. I
Right.
can't predict what will happen. I can only utilize the
That's
data that I have.
understandable. I
Yeah.
was just wondering if you knew what kind of large businesses your model drew in when they built it in the other town.
And where's it gonna be?
Gas stations, retail stores, shopping malls, I mean.
All of the above has been built in Braden in the last 20 years. They've really had a boom.
Bradenton is a suburb of Tampa.
As Johnny said earlier, I don't think you can take the thing in Florida and in any way move it up here to Casada, cause the property, the land itself, there's no comparison. There, you're comparing it, but it ain't.
No, I'm only comparing the results from their economic development.
I understand.
That's all we have to closely compare.
So what other
Quick
school?
Google, quick Google. You mentioned that Manatee, Florida was a small county. And what year was that?
77 when they started.
In 1980, Braden, Florida had 30,000 residents. In downtown, 30,000 residents.
Okay.
They are home to, like this gentleman said, they're home to the Pittsburgh Pirates. They do have a beach.
They're not home to the Pittsburgh Pirates.
Well, they're home to
They're
the
in
Major
Pittsburgh,
League Baseball
Pennsylvania.
pitcher who play their home games in
Spring
downtown
games. They
Legal
play their
Park.
spring games.
Spring training,
Yeah.
excuse me.
It's a big
And,
difference between home and spring games.
They have a high school named Manatee High School, whose football team was nationally ranked in the 50s, the 80s, and the 90s, which consists of 5,500 kids in a high school all the way back to the 90s.
Mhm.
So there is no way to compare what's 2,100 Casada? Mayor, what,
1,500.
That's 1,100.
It's
1,100?
lower than that.
1,100 people in Casada compared, even all the way back to the 80s.
Well, you're comparing
Yeah, we
entire
got-
You're
county,
talking about
number one.
30,000 people.
You're comparing Manatee County as a whole, by the
No,
way.
I'm comparing Braden, Florida.
Well, you
right
were
there.
reading from Manatee County when you were reading just a second ago, so I don't know.
I Google it. Yeah,
Oh,
it's right
I've
there,
done,
black and
I've
white.
done a ton of data research.
Well, you need to rechange your research then because
No, I don't need to rechange
Because
anything, I'm not gonna be condescending.
IMG didn't
Period.
bring in 55 million, it was all this other stuff, the beach, it was the Major League Baseball Pirates.
There
It
is
was,
an economic
Manatee
development
High
study
School.
that was done for IMG in
And-
2012 that
and
came
who-
back with the data that I
And
used.
you're a golfer, they were also home, Braden was also home to the 2015 Division I men's golf championship.
Who paid for that economic development study?
They did it, they're a private company.
IMG
Yeah.
did, yes. You don't think it's swayed any little bit in their favor?
Well, let's say it was
Even if-
200 million.
I
Could we
mean,
use
if a
that?
drug company does tests
Could we
on a
use
drug,
100 million?
and
Could we
they have studies, and they sanction those studies, don't you think those studies are always called into question when the drug company?
Absolutely,
It's the same thing.
100%. Yes, sir.
So I think like anything starts with a plan, correct?
Mhm.
There's not a single thing chart up here with paper, how much this is gonna cost. Everything is perpetual numbers, a guess. Like I said, there's not a plan of the school. Land Drive is, I think, 40 foot wide.
Is it 30?
30 foot, so we can get 5,000 people, this landowner owns this. There's not a plan in place at all, other than your word, which like I said, is, it's all perpetual. Like I said, you don't start a house without a plan, and there's not even a plan. Like I said, it's all private investor. What if the community would like to invest in it? We've never had the opportunity, but like I said, it's all.
They're more than welcome to reach out if they'd like to invest.
Yeah, but like I said, in my opinion, this is fake.
Okay.
I think it's a giant waste of all of our time, because like I said,
You
there's,
didn't have to be here, sir.
Mom,
it's all good, but like I said, there's nothing, there's not a pamphlet for us to see of, numbers, it's all,
So-
They hadn't even done it.
Can I respond real quick?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
thank you for being respectful, by the way, in
Yeah,
your
they
statement.
start building something and
So-
don't work there. You know what the land is about.
Let's give him a chance to respond. Go ahead.
Once again, I go back to my statement. We announced the football coach with no intent to build on January the 4th when that went live. We weren't even made excuse me, I can't even get it out. We were never made aware of even a zoning issue until after that announcement was made, which is my fault, by the way, for not seeing the zoning requirements from our traditionally, the county doesn't have zoning, which is mostly where I've done anything in my past. So that's my mistake. That's something that I missed. And the mayor, is the day they made me aware, Jeannie called me, I was in this office trying to figure out what we need to do from there to make sure we did everything to cross every T and dot every I.
Start with a perk test.
Well, thank you. I greatly appreciate it, but we've got our engineers in place that are doing all of the necessary steps now.
who's the general contractor?
We have not officially named our general contractor
Then who's
to
the
overlook the
engineer for
project.
the general contractor? There's
Steve
no
Martin
plan.
is the engineer,
But there's no plan. There's no plan.
but I don't, listen,
You're driving blind.
from my no, I'm not driving blind, I'm just not sharing everything with everyone because I am a private entity. Mr. Dozier.
Wayne Dozier, I've known Dusty all his life, I'm a little bit older than him, all the family. And, I'm like Johnny, I'm a firm believer in education. I'm 77 years old and I've been working with kids most of my life, ever since I was really a teenager. Started out at Mount Hebron up here, for the last, about 50 years. I served in some large churches in North, Central, and South Alabama, working with kids as a youth and children's minister. And then I came back here and spent 12 years with the Elmore County Board of Education Development Program. So I'm firm believer in family and education. But something that, and in each of these communities, I didn't ask, but because of my involvement and everything, I was asked to serve on I was honored to serve on some of the boards in every one concerning the education. In each of these communities, large communities, Anniston, Calhoun, Fort McClellan up there, Pell City, down in Geneva County. And something that we always tried to do, Dusty, is when we were looking at whatever it was we were trying to do, we tried to look at the people in the area, the families, the kids, the homes, and all the area that we was trying to do whatever, develop and everything, and what was best for them. And we always tried to involve the people, do what was best for the people and for the community. And because you've got to have the family or the people support. And this was in public school systems. In private school, to me, you're gonna have to have even more because you gotta do all this fundraising and everything. So I would just encourage you as a friend to really think and to just listen and wisely consider, okay, before we go any further, do we have the support of the community, the people? Because it don't matter how big a building, if you have the money to build whatever, and people all around it are against it and not going, anytime you try to have fundraising or whatever and all. So that's just a voice from my experience, that it's best to get the local people to be supportive of whatever direction you're trying to go in.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
I have a question about rezoning too, since,
We got about 4 minutes.
Has the, nonprofit been registered yet?
It has. It's already approved.
so.
Our letter of recognition is actually posted on our website, if you'd like to see it.
So you have to go through a rezoning process,
That's
correct? Now, what about the adjoining landowners, if they're,
They'll be notified, if I'm not mistaken.
is it
about the
just your
process.
land that will be rezoned, like that 100 acres? So what happens with the adjoining neighbors?
From my understanding.
What is the
from-
process for that?
From the Regional Planning Commission, when we met with them last week, that would be the process. Just that one property would be the rezoning.
So the town had said that in order for that land to be rezoned, adjoining neighbors would have to agree with that, or is that true? What is the process?
That is the process. When you rezoning, the
Okay.
adjoining neighbors have to be in
So if
agreement.
adjoining neighbors say no, then what happens?
An appeal is processed and it goes to circuit court.
He just gonna have to go to court after that.
Go to court. Okay, sounds good.
Become a civil matter.
It comes to
then.
civil matter.
Alright.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is to you, Mayor. Assuming this goes through, how do you feel it will impact Cusada? Is this a positive, a negative? What is your opinion?
Well, he's saying if, assume that it goes through. I think right now, Mr. DeVoe knows he has a lot he has to do in order to get to where he's going. Okay, will it help us bring sewage in or whatever? But right now, as a nonprofit, he's not obligated to do anything for the town.
Right.
And the town's not obligated to do for him.
That's
Correct.
Absolutely.
That's correct.
When I came and met with the town, I didn't ask anything. That was the first thing I let off with the night on December 11th when we were on the agenda. I wasn't here to ask for anything.
Right.
Most businesses of our size would come and ask for some form of incentive, even if it's as little as a tax exemption. We didn't ask for anything.
Right. It's the same as Jeek and Brick used to be here. It was in the PJs and basically they was not obligated to give us anything, but they would always come and donate.
That's right.
So just whatever he would like to donate to the town, that's what we'll be looking at. Any more questions? We still got about 3 minutes.
Yes, I have one question. We talk about all the increased traffic and that. For the people who have land that butts up to these roads that are gonna be widened or changed or whatever, what if they don't want the roads to be widened? They really can't say anything about that, can they? The county just comes in and widens it and goes on, and then we lose road frontage, we lose land that's next to the road. Is that correct or is that incorrect?
Well, you gotta look at the roads that's in Casada. Okay, they've been extended as far as they can go.
But if we get all of that traffic coming in and out, there's the potential that it needs to be.
I'd like to touch on the traffic here for a second.
Yeah, because you gotta look, if you go down Casada Road, okay, so you're right. I mean, coming down Casada Parkway, say you're coming out of Montgomery, turn on Casada Parkway, coming down, you got the railroad track to your right, okay? It's really, you can't widen those roads. They can't be wide. And then when you go past that and you go turn on Pecan Grove, we could barely get 2 cars down Pecan Grove right now.
Right, I think that was more my question.
Right.
Pecan
So-
Grove, you go to widen that road.
Right,
You just
we'll be in your
ruin
front
those
door
people's
if you
front
live
yards.
on Pecan Grove, we'll be in your front door.
Right.
So.
So that's something that we'll have to address with the
That,
county.
but all of
And
that
Rich
will
and I
have to
had
be
this
done on
discussion.
them with the county.
Yeah, that's
And I can
a
tell
county
you,
question.
the county, they're gonna be looking at it, they're gonna make sure we, with the specs, if we can't meet those specs,
It'll all be based on traffic flow and numbers. That's what it all comes down to. Our engineer's actually working on that as we speak. We spoke with him today. So I'm not sure of county procedure.
yeah, he's gonna have to get with, Richie Myers on.
Richie
Byers on everything concerning that.
Richie's not gonna do anything to sacrifice safety, I can tell you that.
But we had several meetings and Mr. DeVoe know exactly what he needs to do, what expected of him. He knows the process now. He's gonna be getting with Central Regional Alabama Planning to see exactly what he needs to do. They're not gonna pass anything if he can't meet specs, and we contracted everything out to them because I didn't want to have a conflict of interest. So that's why we did, because I know it's small town, everybody knows everybody, and someone's some kin to everybody, and someone may just say, well, okay, this is my cousin, I'm gonna go ahead and check this off, even though they know it's illegal. So that's why we hired out the Central Alabama Regional Planning. So once he get everything to them, they come back to us and say, Mayor, that everything looks great, you know, with the exception of whatever, but usually before they send that back like that, they'll make sure they'll send it back to him, make sure he get everything corrected. Send it to me. I would say, okay, pass it on to the planning committee. The planning committee will look over it. They may have questions. They may see something they don't like. So it's up to them to catch it. And once they say, hey, okay, everything great, then it comes to the council. And once it get to the council, we'll look it over and make sure everything is right. But that's the process.
Well, it sounds like to me the rezoning's gonna have to be done first. You're gonna have to go to court a bunch of times.
100%. And we're prepared to do that if necessary. Go ahead.
I'm new here. I'm less than a year.
Okay.
I
What's your
love
name?
Dawson.
Nice to meet you, Dawson.
I love Coushatta. I live on Pecan Grove Road. I'm gonna ask the dumb question just because I don't know. From what I gather, if he does everything he's supposed to do, paper-wise, and it goes to city council, ultimately, there's no way that he can be, I'm gonna say this in a way that you're probably not gonna like. There's no way that he can be stopped.
If he meet the ordinance requirement, okay, that's set forth by this town, he can do what he needs to do. But he, not only for the town, but he also have to get approval from the county when it comes to those roads.
That's right.
Because the roads are owned by the county.
And ADM.
And you're gonna have to go through ADM.
Sure. And I understand there's steps.
But if we follow procedural, there's a process.
It's a process, and if he can't meet those steps, then he's not gonna be able to build.
I get that, and again, I'm not trying to.
I understand. No,
you know, personally, I'm not for it.
Okay.
But you know, I'm gonna respect you.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
I don't see what, we can voice our concerns all we want, but ultimately, if his paper is right, everything gets approved, this meeting was pointless, right?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on if he gets through the rezoning.
Well, I know, but that's what I'm
He's
saying.
just saying if
Correct.
it does get
Everything
through,
is
it
correct.
doesn't matter what we think, it's just gonna happen.
Because, you
Yes.
know,
That's right.
Yes, making sure I'm on the same page.
Yeah.
You went through
And what's that
all your
economic study
zoning.
being
Hold on,
done?
hold on.
What's
We have
that?
one over here. Hold on, we have one over here.
If you get through all the rezoning, you get all your paperwork in order, the county's in agreement, town of Casada's in agreement, everything's done on paper. You still have to go through the rezoning, which, like they say, we'll probably have to go to court.
That's right.
Do you foresee you still having everything built up and running by the fall?
No.
Like you had said?
Not at all. Not if we go through that, but that won't deter
Or
us.
maybe by
We
2020?
have a complete plan that we've been working on since we found out about this issue, that we are already executing at this point.
What work are you gonna be allowed to do out there before the rezoning?
Anything allowed on the property, we can push dirt. I mean, anything, we don't change water
So what
flow,
work
anything
are
that
you-
fits
So
ADM.
what work
or-
are you planning on doing, let's say, in 2020 for this?
Right now, my number one focus is procedural steps.
So you're not gonna do anything out there?
I didn't say that. I said my number one focus right now is procedural steps.
I mean, you're here to answer questions and be, you know, you wanna like this gentleman, Mr. Sellers over here was bringing up, like, what's the point of the meeting? Like, I don't feel like we've really gotten any other answers other than you telling us you're gonna do what you want and you haven't really shown any real benefit. So, like, I asked, like, what do you plan on doing?
Well, I haven't shown a
I'm just
benefit that
curious.
fits what you want to hear.
I haven't heard you benefit anybody in this room, honestly.
Because you're not a business owner in the community,
Okay, a business owner in the community, if they come in and open a business, they would benefit from an economic movement. The city and town would benefit from this
Does
movement.
anybody feel like they're gonna benefit from this?
So you basically said you're more.
Nobody raised their hand, so it's not just me.
No, I'm definitely worried about
I
benefiting
don't
the
think it's just me.
for sure. But he asked what the direct economic benefits are.
Well, I just asked a question about what you plan.
Property value
I'm just
would go
curious
up.
about
That
what you
affects
plan
the
on
city.
doing before the rezoning. I was just asking a question and you were very vague and didn't answer it, so then I went back to like his point, why are we here? Because we're not really getting anything. Actually, we did get something from you. You're gonna do what you want if you get it approved. That's what we heard from you, and you haven't actually explained to anybody in this room, because nobody raised their hand when I asked them who benefits from this. Nobody. So the whole point of this meeting was for you to come here and tell us, no matter if you can get it through, you're gonna cram it down our throat. That's pretty much what it is. So thank you, appreciate that.
Mayor, a quick question on the procedural. You just said that if he got all the paperwork and it went for the planning commission, does the planning commission not have a vote on it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
What if the planning commission votes it down?
If the planning commission votes down, he can still push it to the council, but if the council agree with the plan, and then he's gonna have to send it back to
So
get
yeah.
everything
Goes to
straight.
court.
No, that is not what I'm asking. If he does everything perfectly right, and it goes for the planning commission says it ain't good for this town.
Oh, no, they don't vote like that. The only thing they look at site plans, make sure everything is in order and he meeting all the requirements. They don't look at, is this good for this town? They have to follow the ordinance of this town. So,
Well,
but I can tell you,
I had kicked around doing a little bit of rezoning on my property, and when I went through the procedures, I was told that if it had to go through the planning commission, and if the planning commission voted it down, I was dead in the water unless I sued the city.
no,
And
that's
That's
not
not the
true.
way they read, no.
That's not true.
Well, then does the town council vote on it then?
Yes,
And do they vote it up or down?
they can vote up or down.
Okay.
They can, but do they?
Not,
Have you ever heard of?
usually when the planning
Commission
commission.
say one thing and then the city
No,
council.
not really.
I've never heard of it.
No, and you also, you have another option, you know, if the planning committee say no and the council say no, and you feel you have a legit argument, then you can go to the Board of Adjustment, which Mr. Harris is on.
Well, I'd like my friend to be around, if he gets his through. When I shoot that deer, it's on my back.
Back to the deer.
And they don't nobody pick me up. And if he believes that, he's coming from Mars.
Yes, ma'am.
You, what I was gonna ask him, you just stated, our property values are gonna go up. I want an economic study that proves that, because I think our property values are gonna go down.
Okay.
Because this is not gonna be good for this community.
I'm not going to fund independently an economic study, but I'll be happy to gather some information
Then
and
do
share
not,
based
then
on.
do not make a statement, your property values are gonna go
So
up.
just
Because
as-
if you have nothing to back it, do not be arbitrarily telling people
You
your
are
property values are
100%,
gonna
you
go up.
have the potential of the property value going up.
Yes, ma'am.
What about the potential, what about the potential for them to go down?
I'm from Slapout, Alabama. I've been there 50 years. When I first went there, it was a little quiet, sleepy town, wasn't much going on. Now, it's just, I mean, property was $2,000 an acre. You can't buy 1 inch of land now less than $10,000 an acre. I'm a broker and a realtor.
It's on the lake.
No, it's not on the lake. This is, no, this is not on the lake. What's on the lake is $20,000 and $30,000 an acre. But I'm just telling you, and Johnny can tell you that because Johnny works up there all the time. And Mr. Dozier knows also because he's up there. But, I mean, it's just gone because the town has grown so big till, I mean, it's just grown and now the
But
price
they
of
put
land.
everything in the town. They didn't put it in somebody's neighborhood.
Oh, you just don't know.
I lived up there. I grew up there.
Yeah, go back.
On the lake.
Go back now.
I was through there just the other week.
Hey, I live right downtown Slapout. I own the restaurant.
And an asterisk, by the way, she's my mother.
Oh, I know who she is.
Yeah.
I
But
just,
I mean-
I don't want it to get out of hand because she's, you know,
No, I mean, I'm not being rude, I just wanted to tell y'all about this.
And Miss Annette, you are right, I mean, you can't go over back, it's gonna be hard to find bears for $10,000 an acre, but.
Yeah,
One of the things that's driving it is, number one, it's the school system. It's got a very good public school, probably the best
It
in the
does.
county.
Yes, we do.
Number
It does.
two is quiet. There's not a lot of rip rap going on, not a lot of stuff.
hey, they drove by and shot, Barry had to get the law over there yesterday afternoon. They were shooting in his pasture at his cows
And-
last
and
night, yeah, there's a lot going
He's,
on.
he's referring to overall noise, he's not,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, I
I mean,
understand.
there were people shooting deer when deer wasn't even up
Right.
there back when I was a kid up there.
but Hopeful has a stadium there,
But-
by the way, and a school, so.
Yeah, and they own 80-something acres up there too. But, but the reason is, number one, it was an old farming community that, and it's kind of like parts of Casarda. It's large landowners, nobody wants to sell, which drives the land up because, you know, it's supply and demand. There's not a big supply of land.
I understand.
And, you know, and there's a lot of people that's made a lot of money in that market, but it's not because it was commercialized and you got retail on every store and you got shopping centers everywhere. I mean, the same shopping center's been there since I was there and since you were there.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
so, you know, and that's one of the things that drives land values in a small community.
Sure.
You know, if you're in a Brayton, I was looking at Brayton, Florida, that campus encompasses 540 acres. So, you
Didn't
know,
start that
I
way.
mean, if Dusty tries to expand, guess what? It'd be hard for him to get 540 acres right there.
Sure.
And so my value, you know, it ain't gonna hurt me because my value's going way up, you
Right.
know?
Oh, yeah. And
but
I
I'm not-
agree, but I just
but-
wanted to explain
I
that
understand.
because of being a broker and a realtor, that, I mean, everywhere, cause everything I list is just,
Right.
I'm thinking, wow, I mean, still.
My land will be right next to that.
She's a broken road, why can't you find some
This
more
thing.
land? that
Oh, I
you
can
might-
find land.
I wish
Mom.
you would.
I can find
All
one.
right, we only exceeded our time. Let's everybody, let's take it home.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I appreciate everyone coming out.